So growing fruit and vegetables in the UK this year is proving a little bit of a challenge because the weather's been somewhat unpredictable. Now last year when we had our first lockdown, we decided to grow some fruit and vegetables indoors on our windowsill. It was the first time we'd done it and it was really good fun and fairly successful. So we got some tomatoes growing, we got some peppers growing, some herbs and things, and we didn't take them outdoors at all. This year we've decided, although that was really good fun and we had quite a good crop, it did dominate our windowsill and our kitchen quite a lot, so we thought it might be nice to try something different. We have actually just managed to successfully grow some tomatoes in winter on our windowsill, so that was something else we wanted to try, and it was successful. So we planted those a couple of weeks before Christmas, and then by Christmas we had little seedlings, and we gave some of them away as gifts, and then kept one ourselves, and it was just a dwarf tomato plant. And finally now, beginning of April, we've got some tomatoes through, and they taste good, and that's with no lighting and no kind of additional help. That's literally just from the sun on the windowsill, and even when it was snowing outside in the garden, we already had those flowers starting to come through, so that was good. But we're going to move it all outdoors this year, so we've got this space here which is basically our decking space, and we're going to use this, and this is hopefully going to help us to kind of weather things a bit better, because a couple of weeks ago when it was a reasonably nice weekend, we dug out our old seed tray, so we've got a few of these, and planted some seeds, got some seedlings growing. We also, if you don't have seed trays, we did a bit of this, which is one of our favourites. So that's just using like old fruit trays and things, preferably ones with holes in, but if not you can make holes, and then you can just put them in something like a baking tray, use cling film, and you can basically achieve the same thing as you get from these. So we got a load of seedlings growing, and we decided that it was warm enough at that point to put them outside. We invested in this. This came from Wilkinson's. It's just like a mini greenhouse, really lightweight. This was £15. They do a couple of others, a couple of bigger ones. This is actually our first ever greenhouse, so it's quite exciting. But the great thing about it is it's really lightweight, so we can actually take it indoors and outdoors, and then at the end of the summer we can pack it away and put it in the loft, so it doesn't have to take up too much space. But what's perfect about this is that although today the sun's out and it's reasonably warm, we've had some really cold weather recently, and tomorrow there's actually possibly snow predicted, so we're going to take the whole of this back indoors, and hopefully just protect these from the worst of the weather. Now they've been out here for a couple of weeks in temperatures ranging from about 7 to, at one point it did go up to 20, so it's been quite a wide range, but we are getting seedlings through. So we've got our microgreens, they're coming along quite nicely. We've got some cucumbers, some sweetcorn, some sunflower seeds, and some peppers as well. We haven't planted anything straight into the ground yet because we just thought it's too cold. We're just holding off doing that, but we are going to do some potatoes today because they're fairly hardy. We're going to put those into the shopping bags. Now, once these have established more and some of them be ready to plant on, we're going to do the same with them. So we're going to use the shopping bags or the grow bags and have them out here on our decking basically, and then the same with them. If the weather continues to be really unpredictable, we can actually then take them back indoors. So we're hoping in a difficult year and an unpredictable year, it's going to maximise our chances of getting some reasonable crops. So we'll see how we get on. Wish us luck, and I hope if you're trying to beat the weather yourselves, then you're having some success as well. So it did snow, not on the day that they said it was going to snow, but just completely out of the blue on a Monday morning when our little greenhouse was still outside. However, I think we've got away with it. We did bring it in later in the day, but obviously it had been in some really, really cold temperatures, but we thought that the weather had picked up again. We thought it was okay outside. It's all very tricky. Looking through what we've got though, everything seems to have survived. The only thing we lost were a couple of sunflower seeds that I had in there, which are easily replaced. So we've got these peas that are coming along really nicely actually. They're almost ready to transplant, so that's good. We've got the microgreens. I'd only planted half of this with microgreens anyway. They're not looking the healthiest I've ever seen, but they're alive, and hopefully if they now get the right conditions they will keep growing and continue to thrive. We've got some cucumbers So this was the one that I did in the fruit tray, and they are starting to come out, so they seem to have survived as well. Should also be ready to transplant soon. And this one is the only one that's been struggling a bit, I think because it probably needs a bit more heat, and that's the peppers, but we do actually have some progress. So I'm hoping that they're still going to come through and that they're going to be okay. I thought I'd just quickly show you as well, because I mentioned before the tomato plant. So this is the tomato plant we've had inside on our windowsill. We've already picked a few tomatoes off, so we've had a bit of a crop. It's not going to feed the 5,000, but it worked. It's also started to get a bit wilted now. I've actually got a pencil to prop it up because I didn't actually have any sticks, and it was really just drooping, so I had to just kind of use emergency measures. As you can see, there is a bit of a wilt. I've been putting some cinnamon around on the earth, the soil, because basically because it's quite damp and it's quite cold in a way, it's difficult to get that soil exactly the right conditions basically, but that seems to have helped keep the worst of it at bay, and we have successfully grown tomatoes in winter. So as an experiment, it was good fun. It is also worth remembering that there are a few things that you can do to ensure that you still get things growing in a cold spring. So a few tips for growing in a cold spring. So the first one we've covered already, which is obviously move or keep your seedlings inside until the weather warms up a bit. Fairly obvious, but if you can do that, if you're planning on putting anything out on a balcony or a patio or anything, keep them inside until the weather looks fairly certain. Difficult to predict at the moment, I know. You can also plant later and choose quick growing varieties. So some varieties of lettuce and salad, things like radishes, can produce crops as quickly as within a month. And also just be aware that dwarf varieties generally grow a lot quicker, so it's worth looking at those. If you've got vegetables and you've already started growing them outside, you can do things like make your own cloches using the tops of plastic bottles and milk containers, and just pop those over the top of the crops to protect them from any frost and particularly cold weather. Once you do get growing, you can make up for lost time once the cold weather has passed by planting in nutrient-rich soil and feeding where appropriate, preferably using organic fertiliser, so just keep really on top of that. Also make sure you give them plenty of water, and if possible use rainwater because it's much gentler on the crops. And you can also even invest in a moisture meter to ensure that the soil is kept at exactly the right moisture level. Another thing you can do actually much earlier in the season is use black plastic to warm your soil ahead of planting. So that just means when you actually put your seeds or your seedlings in, it's going to be really good conditions from the start. And obviously just follow all the good practice directions. So follow spacing directions really closely, as this is going to give your plants the best chance to thrive. And be really vigilant about things like weeds and pests, so weed ideally weekly, possibly even more, and make sure you pick off things like slugs as soon as you see them so that they can't thrive. So that's it for today. I hope that you found that information and those tips useful. If you're doing your own growing, then best of luck. Please do let me know how you're getting on in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, I would love it if you subscribed and came back very soon. But that's all for today. Bye bye.